So first of all, I can probably start with my own apprehensions. When this whole project of turning things virtual came about, I was doubting that my material or my approach would translate well into an online context or a virtual context. And what I had to do is I had to step back and think about, what am I trying to achieve here? Now, what we're talking about within the power of appreciative leadership is about mindsets, it's about behaviors and practices. So my initial apprehension is, how do you do that in a virtual setting without being with people? What I ended up by doing is by taking my content, setting it aside for a moment, and pulling myself out of a classroom setting and starting to think about, well, if I was sitting in a Zoom meeting, what would be my limits? What would be my tolerances? What would affect my ability to really absorb what's going on? And that was my starting point, is putting myself in the shoes of the participant and figuring out, what do we do now? And then it was also tying back to what my role and what my purpose is as a facilitator. And when I think about that, like, I'm not just there to deliver content, I'm really there to work on transformation with people, which means that there's a content piece, then there's a context piece, an integration piece, an application piece. And I started thinking about, well, is there another way to get the content across? And that's where, working with Carlo, I took all of my content and broke it down into short video clips using PowerPoint as a basis. So I would talk to my PowerPoint slides. That was videotaped, and then we compressed them down into a series of 3 to 7 minute videos and provided all the content beforehand to participants. So if you're a participant a week before through Canvas, you received all of these content videos plus instructions on what to do with them. And what that allowed us to do then is to use Zoom not to go over content or not to convey content, but much more to talk about context and application. And what I did there is I actually broke things down into 2 Zoom meetings, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, 90 minutes each. Again, like thinking about the tolerances of human beings to online meetings. And we devoted those 2 1.5-hour segments to getting people to talk about their context, how they would pull the content into their context, and what they could do about it. So that was my approach. And then to inject a lot of exchange of thoughts and experiences. Those 90 minutes were structured with a lot of breakout rooms, which varied between having people work 2-on-2, 3-on-3, large group discussions, and a couple of conversations that were 4-on-4. So there was a lot of variety. There was a variety in who they were talking to. There was a rollover in some circumstances where they went back to talk to the same people, but there were also moments where we recreated new groups to expand the conversations. And then at the end of the session, to think about post-session application, I've been using a process and a platform called the Habit Builder, and I got participants to commit to 21 days of a specific behavior that they wanted to change. And now they're mutually accountable through that platform as to how they're integrating the key behaviors that they identified. And I'm able to watch in the background to see how they're tracking with that. The final thing that we set up was a 22-day or 23-day, this still need to schedule this, but I'm going to add a 22 or 23-day check-in with them, where we'll spend an hour just to talk about what they learned, answer any questions they might have about the content and its application. The feedback that I got was that participants really appreciated those small videos of content beforehand. So people came in, they were ready, they were prepared, they were already thinking. So we really didn't need to spend much time on content. We could really move into those conversations around context and application quite readily. And people really enjoyed it. So the feedback was really positive. People appreciated the pacing. They appreciated the pre-work. They appreciated the length of the sessions that we did. The tool itself really makes it easy because every time I want to generate a breakout room, all I do is go down to the bottom of my screen, click on the breakout room button, and then it asks me, okay, well, how many rooms do you want to create? I put in the number of rooms, and if I have it set on automatic, it automatically distributes participants into an equal number across the rooms. The other function that I use also in extended breakout conversations is that I can join any room at any time to sit in on the conversation. So it allows me to move around from room to room to participate in the conversation, to hear what's being said, and to get some insight coming out of the conversations that are taking place inside those rooms. And what I found really interesting is that these participants actually stepped up. They took the content videos seriously. They went over them. They started integrating before we got into the conversations. That, I think, was more efficient for them and for me, because they were able to do that piece at their pace rather than at my pace. And, when I think about being learner focused, I think that increases efficiency, it increases impact when people can absorb at their pace. Now, through Canvas, all these videos that I made are also available to participants online, so they can go back and check them over again. And I got quite a few comments that people were going to do that. They were going to go loop back and look at a segment on, or this or that, and deepen their thinking around it. So, that's an advantage, because when we do the face-to-face seminars, they can't do that. They can't go back and say, hey, let me revisit this here. Whereas now they have the opportunity to do that. And I think we have to realize, too, that for participants, they're facing all kinds of stuff, particularly if they were at home. So they have families, they have other pressures, they have stuff going on around them. So being able to give them a heads up and give them enough time to absorb the content at their pace just helps them, because they can absorb it at a moment where they have the focus, where they're available psychologically, where they're available emotionally to take things in. So I think that just makes it even better. Well, it's not going to be the same. Definitely. It's not going to be the same. Is it worth doing? I think absolutely. So what I would say to participants is you'll probably be surprised, as a lot of the feedback I received indicated. People were saying, I wasn't expecting it to be very good, and it ended up by being really great. So I think, for participants, be ready for that. Be ready to be surprised.